Madoka Magica is a classical tragedy. Note, I'll be spoiling the series Madoka Magica, but not the movies. While I was thinking about the Madoka series and the choices those characters make, I realised this series is structured as a classical tragedy. In classic tragedy, things become worse because of the choices the characters make, ending in death. In this series, all the characters start out in an innocent state, and as the series progresses, their flaws are realised, leading to death and despair. A defining characteristic of classical tragedy is that it ends with the main character's death, which is brought about by some kind of tragic flaw in an otherwise noble character. In this series, all magical girls follow the narrative arc of their decisions leading to sinister outcomes. The arc goes, they start off with noble intentions, but by signing a contract with Cube, a tragic flaw is introduced, which will become the character's undoing by the end of their tragic arc. The main outcome of this is they become malevolent witches, manifestations of despair. While our heroines becoming witches isn't strictly death per se, this outcome is still considered a bad end and can be seen as roughly analogous to death as a narrative device in the context of a tragedy. While the characters' arcs follow the formula of classical tragedy, the plot clearly breaks from those conventions by introducing the concept of a time loop towards the end of the series. We find out that one of the characters, Homura, is trying to save our main heroine, Madoka, from her seemingly unavoidable tragic fate. A fate which has nearly occurred over and over again thanks to the time loop the characters are in. This plot twist shifts the focus of the narrative onto Homura, who is causing these time loops. This leaves us with the question, how will Homura escape her own tragic fate? By introducing a science fictional concept, Madoka Magica breaks some of the narrative conventions of tragedy by asking ourselves, well, how is it possible to escape this time loop without everything ending in tragedy? The fate of Homura is ultimately prevented in the series by a return to classical form. In ancient Greek plays, the plot would ultimately be resolved. In ancient Greek tragedies, the plot would ultimately be neatly resolved by the gods from final tragedy unexpectedly in the final act. This is called Deus Ex Machina, the origin of the term. A Deus Ex Machina is exactly what happens in Madoka Magica. Madoka, at the climax of the series, uses her wish to stop all magical girls from turning into witches across all time and space, resulting in a paradox that leads to the reformation of reality, where all problems caused by magical girls turning into witches has never existed in the first place. Deus Ex Machina solves all the problems of our characters, solves all the problems that our characters have, including the characters who have been killed in the narrative up to now. All except for Madoka, who, by never existing at all, at least in the form recognizable to her friends and family, fulfills the condition of tragedy in her wish. And Homura, by being the only one to remember the existence of Madoka. The series then fulfills the narrative promise of all wishes ending in tragedy, as well as Homura's memory acting as a narrative device, letting us know what we saw in the narrative was real and not simply written off as a dream. That's almost all, but in the series, there is a final framing device of a stage show with Homura, which is mirrored by the stage motif at the beginning of the series. This motif leads to the final allusion to tragedy, the theatre itself, which is most keenly used in the story of Faust by Goethe. Not to spoil Faust in too much detail, Faust is a German tragedy in the form of an epic poem where the narrative is framed by a play and the titular character makes a deal with the devil. Cube, though more Lovecraftian than demonic, can be seen as a Mephistopheles character who entices the main character by offering to grant a wish at the cost of the protagonist's soul, hence the term Faustian bargain. The key feature of these bargains, while they grant the hero's wish, they ultimately spell out the opposite and cause the hero's downfall. This can be seen with Sayaka wishing to heal her love interest so she can be with him, leading to him jilting her and eventually Sayaka's downfall. Or Honora's wish, where she wishes to meet Madoka. She wishes to save Madoka from a tragic fate, which ultimately leads to Madoka being next after seeing her almost die countless times. The allusions to Faust go further, with the use of the German language, with the witches and Walpurgisnacht, and a Mephistopheles figure, Cube, never lying. In Madoka Magica, characters make bad decisions, leading to tragic outcomes. We, as the audience, should be able to see how the decisions the characters make are wrong. We as the audience should be able to see how the character decisions are wrong, and these decisions not being what the characters should do with complete information. By watching the characters, we learn how not to act out as the characters act. If the series weren't a tragedy and instead a comedy, they wouldn't be making the same decisions. The bad decision making is a feature of classical tragedy. We get the experience of Schadenfreude, watching these decisions unfold, and the catharsis when we learn the outcomes from them. We enjoy watching the self-destructive spiral that the characters are in, and that is a big draw to tragedy as entertainment. Hopefully by seeing these characters, you learn not to make bad deals with demons or eldritch beings at the cost of your soul. I'm sure this comes up all the time. I believe the core appeal of Madoka Magica is that it combines the forms of tragedy with science fiction and cosmic horror in the guise of a magical girl anime. Those aspects create a lot of thematic hooks for the audience. Some people will enjoy the tragedy foremost. For others, the time loop plot, and others, the dark magical girl aesthetic. The combination of characteristics is some new variant of cute goth without explicitly being gothic. When the series was made, it was considered sui generis, a term meaning a class of its own. Madoka Magica is still a conventional anime. It's still a conventional anime. It's not exploring the medium by breaking those conventions of anime itself, but rather taking several genres and blending recognizable elements into an original blend for when it was first released. The series is also visually striking with the strong visual language of Dark Magical Girl, as well as the studio taking on risk with avant-garde animation for the witch scenes. Nothing else at the time was like it. People might not know exactly why the series resonates with them, but often that reason can be time and place. You can be in a time of your life when the themes speak to you. Perhaps you're coming into a new identity for yourself. as a powerful look at self-determination gone wrong could resonate with you. Or maybe it's where you are in life, in an in-between state, and these types of dark coming-of-age themes, coming-of-age stories speak to you. I think it's not. I think it's because not a lot of anime content follow a tragedy formula when the series came out. Tragedy is a tried and tested recipe. The ingredients might be slightly different from those in the past, but the emotional impact on the audience will be the same. It's a story as old as theatre itself.